In our You Are Not a Frog interviews, you often hear a little bit from me and a lot from our guests. Well, this week we are flipping the tables and we've got Mark Steadman, our wonderful podcast producer, asking me some questions. And we thought, as a bit of a summer special, it might be interesting to have a think about the podcast, where I got the stuff from and how I got into it in the first place, but also why I still struggle with a lot of this stuff. So Mark and I cover a whole range of topics on this podcast, from conflict and the difficulty I still have with giving challenging feedback, right the way through to how I struggle to put some of this in practice, even when I know it's the right thing to do. We also go through some of the slightly negative feedback that I have got on social media, and I'm going to directly answer some of those Facebook comments and talk about where they actually have a point. So listen, if you want to find out how a so-called resilience expert actually puts stuff into practice or not, and hear some of Mark and I's top tips about how to approach things like conflict, where we've got those toxic voices in our head, which cause us to not be our best selves.
Rachel, it's a pleasure to welcome you to your own podcast.
I'm very pleased to be here, Mark. Thank you for having me.
First time, long time. Excellent. Why don't you, since this is how podcast episodes so often begin, why don't you tell the listener a little bit about yourself and the story and what brought you here?
Oh, goodness me.
I know it's hard, isn't it, when you're on the other end of it?
Yeah, it is. Okay. So hi, I'm Rachel. I host the You Are Not a Frog podcast. I'm a former GP and I specialised in medical education, and now I'm on a mission to help doctors beat burnout and work happier.
Of anything that you could have become a trainer in and help people with, why burnout and why resilience?
It was very much accidental, actually. So I did a career change about 10 years ago because I realised I just wasn't enjoying my current job. I was working part-time as a GP. I was working part-time at the University of Cambridge. I was on faculty teaching general practice. And because I had done a master's in medical education and I was looking at reflective practice within that master's, they then asked me to set up and lead the Doctor as a Professional course. And that was looking at all the softer skills of clinical practice, although they are definitely not soft skills, they are hard skills, but they're not like direct, like they're not sticking needle in people's skills or diagnosing skills. They're more of that teamwork, patient safety, things like that. And that got me very interested in the professional behaviour of clever people, which quite frankly, sometimes was diabolical. And I had another realisation as well, that next to my bed, there was a pile of BMJs, the British Medical Journal, like up to here, all in their cellophane wrappers. And then on the other side of my bed, there were all as my other half calls them self-help books, but as I'll call it, personal development, self-awareness books, which I absolutely loved. And I was reading those all the time. And I realised that was what I was really, really interested in. And so when I decided to look at what else I could do, I went on a health behaviour change coaching course just to explore that. And it was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It was the first time anyone had taught me a different way to consult. And I got really interested in coaching at that point. So then I trained as an executive coach. And while I was doing that, I learned all these models that they just didn't teach me at medical school, like the drama triangle or the urgent important matrix and things that really helped me operate in daily life, which I started using, and it really transformed my life. And I thought, actually, this needs to be shared with other people. And when I started doing the training, because I thought, well, what can I do? I'm now a trained coach. I've got a background in education. Well, I can go in and I can train on wellbeing because I'm also a GP. I know how to... Well, I should know how to look after myself and I should know about wellbeing. So that's what people want. And my first training courses on wellbeing, honestly, they went down like a lead balloon. Okay, I remember going into a law company to do a lunchtime session on wellbeing for women. And they'd got all these lawyers sat around the table. And there was me as a fairly naive new trainer going in. I thought, well, I'll talk to them about wellbeing. And did, some good content around wellbeing, and they were quite interested. And at the end of the session, one of them put their hands up and said, "This is great, Rachel, and I'd love to go for runs. I'd love to cook my own food without just buying takeaways the whole time." She said, "But I'm expected to answer my emails within 30 seconds of receiving them."
Ooh.
30 seconds. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, that's just normal. I'm like, oh my God, well, how on earth can you do any of this wellbeing stuff then? And they're like, duh, that's the problem.
Well, first off, you should move to Slack because email's not,
Exactly. Like, that's really bad. So, and that was like, oh shit, you can't teach wellbeing unless you have people that have got the time to look after themselves, because wellbeing actually takes time. I hate to tell you, I've never been able to run 10K, but I can guarantee it wouldn't take me 5 minute. It would take me more like an hour and a half. And you can't do a year of meditation in one day. You need the time to do it, don't you? But if you haven't got any time, how are you going to get time? So I thought, right, so what we need to teach now is time management. So did a lot of research, and actually time management is something that I'm really interested in, because I've never been very good at it, because I've since realized that I have ADHD. And so I'm A, pretty time blind, B, very impulsive, C, take on far too much, D, like every shiny thing going. And so consequently get very, very overwhelmed very, very quickly. And all my life I've been looking at how can I organize myself a bit better? And so I'd read a lot of stuff about time management, and all of which was very, very helpful. Like, I think if you find a time management system and you follow it, that's great. But then you've got another problem, because any way of time management basically means you've got to work out what you're going to prioritize and what you're not going to prioritize. Because if you've got too much to do, no amount of time management is going to help you do it all. You've still got to decide what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, and when you're going to stop working so that you can go and do that 10K run. But that's a problem, because what if you're in a job that just has unlimited demands and expectations of you? Then suddenly time management becomes about saying no and saying, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to limit my time here. Good enough and done is better than perfect and pending. And that takes an entirely different skill. That is now about how I'm thinking, and the guilt and the shame and fear that I worry about if I don't answer that email within 30 seconds, like those lawyers had to do. So I'm like, oh, okay. So in order to keep yourself well, you've got to manage your time. In order to manage your time, you've got to get your head right and think differently, so you don't mind upsetting people and you're not constantly feeling guilty that you're not doing enough and all that. So then I started looking to mindset, and it sort of snowballed from there. So what on earth was your original question?
Checks notes. I'm pretty sure we've covered it, but I'm interested then in, there's a tricky line when you're telling people there are things you could/should do, and some people are going to read that as a should, even if it isn't presented as such. What is your approach when we are talking about the idea of resilience victim blaming?
And this is a really tricky one, because actually we've been putting out some stuff on Facebook offering some sort of free tools and things like that. And we had someone getting very cross about the fact that we had suggested people might want to download a free toolkit we've got called The 9 Mistakes Doctors Make When They're Burning Out. In fact, we can put that in the show notes if anybody wants it. But someone put, how dare you suggest that doctors make mistakes? And it's not their fault that they're burning out. It's entirely due to the system. So that's the resilience victim blaming, like you're talking about. We're saying that it's doctors' fault that they're burning out. And that, like I said, it's a fine line. It's not your fault that you're burning out. And that's one of my messages, that if you put a human being under enough pressure for long enough, all the evidence shows us that they will burn out, no matter how resilient you are. If you stick someone in a toxic system and nothing changes and they keep working and working, there's no mitigating circumstances. Yeah, any human being will end up the wrong side of the burnout curve. But that doesn't mean to say that there's nothing we can do. So the system 100% has to change. We know that everyone can see what's happening in healthcare, and social care. And actually, it's not just in the sort of public sector services. It's everywhere. There's this massive pandemic of burnout. But while we're saying, well, I'm not going to be okay until the system changes, that is a very powerless position to be in. And there's nothing we can do about that. So you might as well just sit back and go, right, okay, burnout's inevitable. But there are things that you can do individually to make things better for yourself that you do have control of and that you can do. So the answer to resilience victim blaming is sort of no and or yes and that no, we are not blaming the victims, but we're saying there's a lot of stuff that's outside your control, but there's a lot of stuff that is in your control. And so if you neglect to look at those things that are in your control, then you've missed a trick. Because if you're just going to sit there complaining and wait for the system to change, you're going to be waiting an incredibly long time.
One of the things that I know has come up in previous episodes is the Enneagram. And so much, it feels like to me, so much of the stuff that you cover in this show is about, yes, we've got a lot of personal time management and personal responsibility or personal control, but there's also a huge amount that is about dealing with colleagues, dealing with team members, team leaders, being a leader. And the Enneagram looks to me to be a useful way of getting an understanding about how humans interact and how different personality types bounce off each other. So what has been your relationship to and your interest in the Enneagram?
I've been quite obsessed with personality profiles. Not quite sure why. I think anything that gives you a bit of awareness is really key. In fact, when I was working at the university, I actually submitted a workshop at a conference, which was what profiling tool is best for medical students. And we looked at all the different ones. We looked at MBTI and Enneagram and Belbin. Oh, and there was something else, and maybe the four colours one. And I like anything that gives you some awareness and increases your awareness, because it's impossible to solve problems or deal with stuff if you're looking at the wrong issue, if you're looking at the wrong problem. And in fact, as a coach, often in a coaching session, most of the sessions spent just trying to work out what the real issue is and what the real problem is you need to solve. And so what I like about the Enneagram, and actually any of these profiles, is that it's a shortcut to be able to understand where the issues are. So whatever you think about Myers-Briggs, whatever you think about the four colours, they are not the truth. By the way, they are no way the truth, but they are a model, and models can be useful. And if you have a model that other people understand as well, and it's a shortcut for them understanding what you're like, then you can get so much more clarity about your need. For example, if you look at Myers-Briggs, I've realised I'm a Myers-Briggs P, which means I'm pretty unstructured. I sort of know where I'm going, but I like to go all the way around the houses and I'll get to it last minute. Now, for someone who's a J, who likes to know where they're going and all the steps along the way, I'm a bit of a nightmare to work with, because it's very worrying for them to think, oh, she's a J. And that can be really irritating for me, because they're constantly on my back going, well, hang on, you haven't sent me this at this right time.
Felt like Rachel was doing my voice then.
I think I need the intro by this time.
Oh my God, this is just going to turn into a podcast therapy session, isn't it?
It's either that or a roast.
Are you it genuinely wasn't.
I think when I did Myers-Briggs, I think Jay came up. Yeah.
So it's for Jays, it's very hard to work with a P, because it's actually very anxiety inducing, because if it was you, you'd have the stuff ready a week in advance. It would get to you. You'd know where you are with it. For a P, it's just, we need that deadline to actually get our asses in gear. And actually, I think that's an ADHD thing as well. We're often motivated by the amygdala going, oh no, deadline, to actually get something done. But just that understanding is really helpful. So I now know that Mark's a J. So the last minute stuff doesn't sit very well with you. So even if I don't change, but I go, Mark, I know this is annoying, but it's going to come to you tomorrow afternoon at 4, is probably more helpful than you just not knowing when it's going to come and having to take a guess.
Or
right?
if, yeah.
Or if it's going to come.
And that wasn't directed at you. That's just a general thing, because, yeah.
And when you think about when we work together in teams, we work together. Well, I have a bit of a thing about teams in healthcare. We don't actually work in teams. We work in working groups in our own little offices, and we get together in a little working group, and then we go back into on our own. But in the interactions we have, we often don't understand each other. If you're a GP partner, you're running a business with these other people. And if I don't understand your way of operating in the world, if I don't understand, again, Myers-Briggs, I can talk about Myers-Briggs with probably a bit more authority, because I am Myers-Briggs facilitated trained. So as an extrovert, I need to talk to understand what I'm thinking. I can't really come up with ideas on my own. I have to be talking to someone else. Also, I recharge by being with other people. Now, introverts, it's not that they're not sociable, but they recharge by being on their own. So they need breaks away on their own. They need to know what they're thinking before they say it. Now, if you're an introvert in a load of meetings of extroverts, I think that's probably a real nightmare. So the extroverts will just be like talking the whole time and talking crap because they don't actually know what they're thinking. And the introverts thinking, well, I've worked out what I'm thinking now, but I can't get a word in edgeways. Or if someone springs a surprise on them, they don't have enough time to like formulate their thoughts before they answer. So just knowing that actually an introvert probably needs to know about the decisions they're going to be talking about before the meeting so they can think them through first. And then the extroverts just need to shut up. That can be really helpful, right? In fact, I was in the car, my husband's an introvert, but I was just chatting away. And at one point he said, Rachel, can you just stop talking, please?
Wounding.
I was like, are you not interested in what I have to say? He's like, it's just too much. So yes, rude man. Anyway, it's fine because he doesn't listen to the podcast. My mother listens to the podcast, but he doesn't. But yeah, I think it just helps you rub along. And the Enneagram, I think, is particularly insightful. I was introduced, I'd heard about it before. The person that really got me into the Enneagram was Annie, who runs our commercial training. And she's the most amazing Enneagram facilitator, looked into it really deeply. And if anyone's interested, she's done episodes on the Enneagram, which you can check out. But it's numbered 1 to 9. I'm not going to go through them all now, but if you know what somebody else is, what number they are, you know what's sort of motivating them. So I'm a 7. I'm motivated by wanting to feel free, wanting to have fun, wanting to enjoy life. And if there's anything that puts limits on me, I can feel a bit like, oh, that's not very fun, is it? Now, what number are you, Mark?
9.
9. So let me say what. So you tell me you're a 9. Now this is what I would then infer about you. Tell me it's right. So you are motivated by keeping the peace, by having everyone around you happy and getting on. And so if I was in a meeting and made a suggestion which you could see upset someone over there, that would make you quite angsty and feel quite uncomfortable.
Yes. All of those things. Yes.
So there we go. Shortcut for me understanding possibly how you tick and noticing that if you get upset in a meeting, it might be not because you hate me, but because there's other people that are feeling a bit uncomfortable and that's making you really, really uncomfortable. And so then I can make more allowances or change my own behaviour to rub along better. And interesting, one of our trainers, Karina Gordon-Barnes, who's again been on the podcast quite a lot, is a trained Enneagram deliverer or whatever you call it, coach, facilitator, coach. Mm-hmm. And she does Enneagram work with couples and she's had couples that thought they were pretty much definitely going to split up, but then have done the Enneagram and just understood each other better and gone, oh, I can see why you do that now. It's not because you hate me. It's just because you're really focused on, you're motivated in a slightly different way. So I just think if you're in a team and you don't understand the other people in your team, the very easy thing to do is just do some sort of profiling or understanding of each other. And it just makes it so much easier.
Are there any stories within your own team that can bear that out?
We had someone working in the admin department who was a 6, loyal. They're described as loyal skeptics. And yes, I used to bring her ideas and she'd be like, not sure about that. And then after a while, she'd be like the biggest cheerleader of the idea. But her first reaction would always be, not sure about that. But actually, it was a really helpful thing to have on the team because you were then able to explore the downsides of the idea. And then once she was on board, she was like the biggest cheerleader and really pushed it forward. So yes. And that was really helpful to know that she wasn't just being difficult. It was just actually where she was. And I always think actually the more diversity we have in the team, the better, really. Like if you had a team full of 7s, it would be a complete disaster.
It'd just be takeaway boxes, just as high as they.
Yeah, we'd just be out partying the whole time. And we had somebody else who was a 2, which is a helper, and she would always say yes to everything because she really wanted to help. So I sort of learned to actually check in a bit later, going, "Do you really have the capacity to do that?"
Or is that just your 2-ness?
Yeah, is that going to be? And then she'd think and go, no, that's fine. Or actually, you're right. Maybe I can't. So that avoids a whole heap of pain, actually.
So you've just recorded an episode that went out last week on conflict and why we need more conflict in teams potentially, either through the lens of the Enneagram or through the Shapes toolkit. What are some of the ways that you have maybe headed off conflict on the past, or had to deal with conflict within your own team?
Well, that's a really good question. And I need to start with the caveat, I'm really bad at conflict. It's actually the one thing I fear more than everything else.
Same.
Yeah, which my family laugh at because they're like, you're constantly telling us off, mum.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean conflict. That's, it's a different power
That's
dynamic.
just like, yeah, exactly. I think, and going back to the ADHD thing, I think as a child, as quite an intelligent girl who was maybe a bit outspoken, I was labelled tactless and I was impulsive, and I used to speak out and spot issues with things, and I was criticised quite a lot, actually, criticised quite heavily because I wasn't just a quiet little girl that got on with stuff. And I think I've developed this thing that I think you can do with ADHD, and I'm going to get the name wrong. It's called rejection sensitivity
disorder.
Thank you. So I'm really, really sensitive to upsetting people because I've had this sort of narrative in my head that I'm the sort of person that upsets people, even though I don't have any evidence of that now.
No, and I don't like to interrupt you, but I also I feel like this comes through a lot in the solo episodes. And as I'm listening to them, I don't know what it's like for you, dear listener, but as I'm listening to them, I'm sort of going, I think you're quite mean to yourself. Yeah, I can only imagine that's kind of where that comes from, because it does seem like you are a harsh critic.
Oh, well, we're all our harshest critics, aren't we, I think?
Sure.
And unless you're a narcissist, but welcome inside the mind of a doctor, Mark. We're all so fiercely self-critical. So I think I know that the story in my head is probably very different from what's out there. So as a consequence, I've found it very difficult to actually state what my needs are. Like, actually, I need this from you, and you've not delivered that. So can I call it out and say, you haven't done that? And I think in the past, I haven't said it, or I've left it too long, and then I've got cross about it. So then it's come out as bad conflict rather than just being able to state it. So I really struggle with giving people honest, clear feedback about what I want, what I need, what I like, what I don't like, which is why I've got quite obsessed with, okay, so how do you have these conflict conversations? Because one thing I've noticed in healthcare and teams, actually, we, like I said in the last episode of the podcast, we don't conflict enough. Everyone is very scared of that. We're really scared of giving people difficult feedback or challenging feedback. And I hate having challenging feedback, but I'm always really grateful when somebody cares about me enough to give it to me, because how on earth can we change and develop and grow and do good if no one's ever telling us when it's not working? And I struggle to this day to give people feedback. And as a result, I end up saying yes to things when I might mean not sure or no. Then that's not kind either, because that's not clear. And clear is kind. And so you end up over promising, or you end up not really saying what you think, but then just being really resentful. And I think with doctors, what we do is we just go, yeah, I'll do that, because you feel, well, I'm responsible, I should do it. And then you feel really resentful that you have to do it. And that just transfers to every walk of life. And, you replicate it in whatever business you're in and blah, blah, blah. Hence, I'm trying to get better at conflict, but good conflict. Like, I'm not trying to get better at going around shouting at everybody.
Starting a fight everywhere.
Yeah, but getting back to saying, actually, no, that doesn't work for me, and here's why. And this is what I need. And being really clear. And I've started really looking down and exploring the whole non-violent communication thing, because I really like that method as a way of, like, let's state what I need, let's state the impact and how that made me feel, and so why I'm requesting this. I haven't cracked it. It's something that I want to do more on, and our shapes help with that, because I think with conflict, you've got to start off with why we all fear it and the amygdala reaction. Because the one very fundamental question that we are all asking all the time is, am I safe?
Mm-hmm.
Am I safe here? And a lot of us in healthcare, doctors, nurses, managers, lots of healthcare professionals have this massive chimp, massively developed amygdala that just reacts to everything in a very defensive way when we're criticised or when we don't like stuff. It's just trying to keep us safe. It's just trying to keep us safe. And you can sort of see why when we've been taught by humiliation, there's the threat of being sued, there's a threat of complaints. We want to be seen as being good people, we want to be seen as helpful. Therefore, our amygdala reacts really, really quickly when the story in our head is we're not doing a good job or someone's criticizing us or something like that, because we don't feel safe. And so one of our shapes, the in the corner shape, helps us identify when that is happening. And the stories that we're telling ourselves that mean that's happening. Because we're always catastrophizing, telling ourselves the worst case scenario. And most of the time, and this is why it's useful to understand other people, most of the time we've got it completely wrong. Really silly example. Me and my other half, again, I can tell stories because I'm not going to listen. We're on a train, we're going to the airport, and he'd hurt his back recently. And so he was, I think I put my suitcase and it was going to roll around. And so I lifted it up to put it on the top. And I said, no, you don't do it. I'll do it. And he thought I was like I was saying you'd put it in the wrong place. I'm trying to control you, all that. And actually I was thinking, oh my goodness, it's going to roll around and I don't want him to lift it because of his back, Mm-hmm. And so we got into this whole, why can't you leave me to do my own suitcase type ridiculous argument when I was trying to be thoughtful. He was trying to be thoughtful, but we'd both assume that the other one was just trying to be annoying. It was just so stupid. It was really, really stupid. But that's how disagreements and conflicts start. And I think a lot of the time in conflicts, actually, you're actually on the same page. It's like, that thing didn't work, and I can see that thing didn't work. So how can we actually work together better so it does work? But the problem is the conflict comes when I'm so defensive about what I'm in self-protection.
Yeah, it's like that primary drive is to be safe, but almost the next level of the hierarchy of needs is like, yes, we want this project or whatever it is that we're working on, we want that to go well, and so we know that we're both working towards the same ends, but at the same time that higher level need is very much just like, yeah, but I want to be safe.
And it has been really helpful for me learning that phrase that we teach everyone in the training, just saying, look, the story in my head here is, so Mark, the story in my head when I sent you that episode really, really late is that you thought I was useless idiot. Why, and you're like, well, that wasn't exactly right. No, the story in my head was I was really worried because I was going out that evening and I want to do a good job for you and I didn't have time to do it the next day. I was like, oh, well, okay, you didn't think I was a useless idiot. No, of course I didn't.
No.
It's definitely not.
Well, listen, I think we should take a quick break. And when we come back, I think we should model some of this good behavior of dealing with conflict and perhaps address some challenging feedback. How's that sound?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So we have some comments from members of the general public who have interacted in some way with the You Are Not a Frog brand, and don't necessarily have the most helpful or constructive things to say. However, they are in many ways useful for us, because I think there are some questions maybe that perhaps linger in our minds, or we are thinking here about why should we listen to Rachel. And so with that in mind, should we go through, how do you feel about going through some of these some of these comments? Are you strapped in?
Go for it. I've got my big girl pants on. Let's hear the haters.
Shake it off. Just is the third Taylor Swift reference in the podcast?
Yeah, okay. No, we like to. In fact, my two daughters are going to see Taylor Swift in August, so yeah.
Indeed. Okay. Why should we do what you say? It clearly didn't work for you, all of this burnout, resilience malarkey, because I'm paraphrasing, because you left general practice. So, why should we do what you say?
So that was the comment on Facebook. Yeah, that is a real ouchy one. The answer to that is you shouldn't do what I say. I don't think you should do what anyone else says, really, because there's so many people giving advice out there. And all of it conflicts. And if you try to do everything, it just wouldn't work, would it? So, and I think I wrote this under the comment, like, just listen. And if it doesn't work for you, don't do it. Like, I only share stuff that I've tried myself and that's worked for me. Or there's stuff on the podcast that other people are saying, that guests that I've been talking to that I think are pretty useful and I like what they're saying. So I think it's really dangerous if you blindly follow anybody without just testing out, or you try something and you think, is this working or not? And if it's not working, then don't do it. Because if you just do it because someone said it, then that's what's called a blind follower. And that's not what you want. And what I'm trying to do is just share useful things that I have heard and that I have found to work in my own life. Now, your life might be totally different. And so the context of what's going on with you might mean that it doesn't work. So if it doesn't work, don't listen to me. I really worry sometimes about the influence of certain figures in pop. Well, we all really worry, don't we, about the influence of certain figures in popular life? But we're big fans. Me and my family are big fans of the Rest is Politics podcast. Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart. And so we went to hear Rory Stewart speaking at the Corn Exchange recently. And he's a really intelligent man. He's got some really good ideas. I really like him, but not all his ideas are brilliant. Not all of them will work. But because he's been on this podcast, and he's very personable and he's very intelligent and he gets on well with Alistair Campbell, I do think that, like, if he stood for Prime Minister, I would know we just had a general election and I'm a fan of Keir, which is good. But like, I thought it was just before the election, actually, I thought, gosh, if he suddenly stood for Prime Minister, I reckon he'd probably get in, because everyone thinks he's so wonderful because they've heard him so much on the podcast and they heard him talking. And so they trust him because they've listened a lot. And so I think there is a danger of just blindly following somebody that you've listened to a lot. Just because you like what they say in one dimension doesn't mean they're right about this thing over there. So I would hate anybody listening to this podcast just to blindly do whatever I say without testing that out and sense checking it for their own situation and saying, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Where did it come from as well? Is it based on real life experience? Is it based on evidence and research? Is it a model which may or may not apply? Or is it, something fundamental? But, you really need to start using that sort of, well, I was about to say evidence-based approach. Sometimes we can get too evidence-based and go, well, where's the evidence for that? Because I don't see evidence, I'm not going to do it. But a lot of this psychological stuff, it's very difficult to get actual evidence, but it's like real life face value. Is that going to work in your workplace or not? There is one caveat to this though, because recently I've come across this sort of phrase of choosing to be confused. There's a chap called Donald Miller that runs a lot of really good sort of business and marketing stuff. And he said that he was having a coaching session and his coach, he was saying to his coach, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And his coach said, stop pretending to be confused. You know what to do. You're just too scared to do it. And so I think sometimes when it comes to like particularly conflicts and difficult conversations and making difficult decisions, sometimes we do know what we need to do. And we're just a bit scared to do it. So I wonder sometimes if what the podcast does is just mainly give people permission to do that thing that they knew they had to do in the first place. And maybe give people some of the how to do it. Because I can't tell you what to do. Of course I can't. And I shouldn't. I shouldn't either.
More to the point.
Yeah, but maybe we do get a lot of emails in from people going, just thank you. I was listening to this at the point where I was really struggling and it just made me feel that it was okay to do this or take time off or ask this question or reduce stuff here or change to this or whatever. And that really, really helped.
This one's gonna hurt. So let's just rip off the plaster as quickly as possible. You're not even a real GP.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's not. It's just. It is true. I'm not a practicing GP. No.
You've got the training.
I've done it for 20 years. So
yeah. I
am a qualified doctor. I still have, I'm registered with the GMC. I gave back my license to practice a couple of years ago because I wasn't under the revalidation process. And I know that if I ever go back, then I will need to retrain because there'll be so much. So no, I'm not a practicing GP. And so I'm always very careful to use the terms former GP because I want to be totally transparent. But I do think that has given a bit of an advantage in that what I do now, because I go and do a lot of conferences and talk and I meet a lot of people, is I get a bit more of a bird's eye view about what's going on over the country. And I get to interact with lots of people in lots of different practices versus just working in depth in one practice. So the sort of stuff I'm talking about, I think I'm able to make it generalizable to lots of GPs as opposed to just one lot of GPs working in a particular type of practice. But, I mean, it's a bit mad, isn't it? You'd never say a tennis coach can't coach tennis because they're no longer on the professional circuits. I mean, so that doesn't bother me too much. What probably bothers me more is the slight feeling of guilt, when you know that people are out there churning through the patients and it's really, really hard out there and they're just, working in very difficult circumstances. And even though I know the podcast is helping people, I do see the people that are down there on the front line doing a most fantastic job and just totally take my hat off to them.
Oh, absolutely. I think, there's a point here, and I want to try and make it without sounding glib or trite, but you have an opportunity to help more people who help more people because of your position in if you like in the stack in the pyramid. You are at the position where you can provide tools and frameworks and things to help with mindset for the people who are, as you say, sort of in the front line, and so even doctors need doctors, coaches need coaches, therapists need therapists. You're still doing that work, and that work is needed. I
think sometimes it is helpful to get that bit of sort of distance and perspective that you can't necessarily see when you're in the trenches. Also, I just think there is something about taking my own medicine. I'm very, very clear that I think the way ahead for people to work is to stick to their zone of genius and to craft their jobs, whether inside or outside medicine, inside or outside healthcare, to do more of what they enjoy within their work. And one of the reasons I did the career change is that the job never particularly suited me in the first place. When I did a strength survey, which is not personality profile, but I'd also recommend people do that. One of my top strengths at the time was like winning others over. I was like, well, how helpful is that when I'm like prescribing antibiotics and stuff? But actually, and also that one of them was connecting ideas. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, GP, how does that work? And I felt like I could do that a little bit more in the teaching role I was in than the sort of day-to-day practice. And when I looked at my strength survey a few months ago, I was like, oh my goodness, it absolutely corresponded to what I do now, which is the podcast and the keynote talks and the training. Much, much more to the role I was in there. Now, whenever anyone does a career change, whenever anybody leaves medicine, there's always this massive thing about your identity and did it mean I couldn't cut it? Was I not good enough? And I've come to the point where I'm thinking, well, those questions, they're just irrelevant. They're the wrong questions to be answering. The question is now, am I doing something that is benefiting other people? And am I doing something that I'm good at and that I enjoy? Because that is better for the world than me doing something that I was okay at, but not that brilliant at, and that wasn't really suiting me and my skill mix. So I think we need to get over the guilt, get over the shame. We got to get over the identity loss that we feel when we do transition in roles. But I do think we need to get better at working in our zone of genius in whatever role we're in.
I believe you posted a video about ways that people can deal with burnout, and one of the comments was the simple sentence: "Stop overworking them for a start." I know we've covered a little of this already, but it's just the system. There's it's all the system's fault. Is there anything else here that we can think about?
Yeah, I mean, just hear the tone of that comment. Stop overworking them for a start. Like, there is someone who's overworking someone else. Who is overworking them?
It's not the host of this podcast. Like, it's I don't think that's that's within
but
your...
it's like, is it the NHS? Is it the patients? Is it? I tend to think that it's generally ourselves that are overworking ourselves. Now, that's probably going to piss a lot of people off. There is always too much work to do. There is always too much work, and people can demand so much of you, and people are demanding more and more and more, and people are feeling trapped. So I want to acknowledge that. However, a lot of people are worried that they're going to lose their job, or people are going to think badly of them if they set those boundaries. in their work and they say, enough is enough. I'm unsafe now. I need to go home, or I can't do that. Or no, I'm not taking on that project. But I was talking to someone last night in our Shapes Academy, and she was saying that they have a colleague at work that never takes on extra work, that they know will always say no to this or that, and is recognised as a fantastic doctor, and everybody respects them. Now, someone else will be thinking, yeah, but if everyone was like that, then how would the service exist? But I'm not thinking about the service. I'm thinking about individuals. And, you know, I think once individuals start drawing the line and saying, no, this is how we're going to work, that gives permission for other people to do that, gives permission for the juniors to do that. And then you've got this groundswell of people going, no, enough is enough. This is the boundary. This is how we're going to work. And then change happens. So you actually end up influencing the system by making the personal change for yourself. So it's very difficult. You know, it's not as easy. It's not a black and white as I'm talking about, but this stop overworking them for a start, you know, that is entirely putting the blame on somebody else. And when you're blaming somebody else, you lose all your power for doing anything about it.
So, dear listener, this is, you know, if you take one thing away from this, is that by listening to this podcast, you are part of a movement. You're not just spending, you know, your time in, you know, listening to Rachel and I. You're part of a groundswell. You're part of a movement of change. That makes you pretty cool.
Doesn't it just?
Mm-hmm. Okay, last one. This is a fun one. I've got 3,000 emails in my inbox already. I haven't got time for this. I think someone was accusing you of spamming them, which feels a little bit harsh because, I mean, you know, it was their choice to opt in. But yes, how can one extra thing for us to do or think about help when it feels like we've got 1,000,001 things to already do?
Yeah, I mean, there's someone who's totally overwhelmed, right? Mm-hmm. They really are, and unfortunately, I think that's how people feel, isn't it? Oh, there's just one more thing to do. And in fact, I had an email from someone saying, stop sending me emails. I'm feeling overwhelmed as it is. And when we actually look back, they had opened every single one of the emails that had been sent. And I'm thinking, well, you can either unsubscribe or just don't open them. We're all bombarded by too many emails, aren't we? And the fact that this person felt that they ought to open them rather than just deleting them is a mindset, isn't it? That I've got, because someone sent it to me, I'm beholden to you to open it.
It comes back to that question of control again. That person has control over their inbox. They do have the ability to, like you said, look for the unsubscribe link or send a reply back to say unsubscribe, or find another way in their email app to you know, block the sender. Please don't do that. But you know, that is within your control, rather than surrendering that control, prostrating yourself in front of someone and saying, you have to stop. It's like, you could choose to tell me to stop and I will stop.
Yeah. And it brings back to boundaries again. So inbox is really difficult. So we don't have any control over what lands in our inbox apart from clicking that unsubscribe button. Now, because we live in a digital world, the only way I have to tell people about what's coming up on the podcast or tell them about some of the training and stuff that we offer is via email. So we do send out emails, but we have on our email list now made it so that you can just opt into an email once a month and you don't have to have anything else, or you can just opt into the frog. So have a look at that, by the way, for people that are wanting to do that. But I had another comment in a talk I was doing by someone saying, it's not fair. My work keep emailing me when I'm on annual leave asking me to do extra shifts. They keep encroaching on my boundaries. And probably 6 months ago, I'd have said, yes, that's really awful. You need to have a conversation with them. But I heard another really helpful podcast, and I think I did a quick dip about this, about the only person that can enforce your boundaries is you. Like, so don't check your work emails when you're on annual leave. That is the boundary that you can enforce. Now, some poor body medical staffing is just firing out emails to all the juniors going, can you fill this shift? They're not going to look through and think who's on annual leave, who's on not. And if you're going to get offended that someone's encroached on your boundary, well, people encroach on your boundaries all the time. But it's whether you let them or not. So the boundaries are something that you have to enforce. So in the emails, there are email rules that you can do. There's the unsubscribe button. You can just don't have to open. You can delete them. But again, it's about thinking differently. It's about the mindset of, I don't have to respond to every email. And by the way, apparently every email you respond to generates 1.7 extra emails. So it's just like this vortex of email nightmare.
Especially if you get onto one of those chains where someone's accidentally CC'd an entire department, and then every single one of them replies with, I think you've accidentally CC'd everyone. And then it just goes on and on and on, infinite emails.
I think someone did that on the NHS email once, and they crashed the entire system. They replied to all however many hundreds of thousands of people that worked in the NHS, or millions of people work in the NHS. So I just think back to that comment, that's someone who is feeling totally out of control, and it's like one more straw that's going to break the camel's back. In fact, actually, the person that put the comment, I don't think was even looking back. They're just like, oh, I will get spammed if I do this. And so it's a bit of a self-protection thing. And that's a problem. That's how we feel when we are overwhelmed and burnt out. And so I think sometimes we then ignore the things that actually would help us, because it just feels like another thing to do. And that's another problem with resilience training. It just feels like another thing I've got to do, or wellbeing. It's like another thing I have to do in my week to, just another commitment or whatever. So I'm very keen on making all this stuff not just another commitment, but actually something that genuinely will be joyful and make your life better. And so you'll want to do it. It won't feel like just another commitment.
Well, that takes us out of the Thunderdome, so I think congratulations are in order for that. I do have a slightly spiky question for you though, as we think about rounding up, and then I should ask you for your 3 top tips. You have a sense of responsibility for this podcast. You are aware of the audience, you are aware of the number of people who listen, and I know that's not something that you take lightly.
Yes, I've been really blown away by the response to this podcast, and I'm so honoured and privileged that so many people listen and recommend to their friends. And I've lost count of the amount of people that come up to me and said, oh, my appraiser recommended this to me, or my coach recommended your podcast. And so I'm very, very thankful and very, very grateful. I do feel the responsibility that I'm not giving advice that's really unhelpful, or the responsibility to not give advice that's just way off the mark and really unhelpful. So in a way, those comments on Facebook are really helpful, because they help me check in with myself and check in that it's okay. And of course, it isn't just me sitting here doing the podcast. I've got you and lots of other people on the team as well. So it even though I'm like the face of it, there's a whole back team in Wild Monday who we think about what topics would be good, what we're hearing on the ground. And, I have lots of friends and family who work in healthcare. So I definitely got my ear to the ground, and I know when something's going to be massively off mark. But I do feel quite worried at times that I'm going to give advice that is just wrong. So I'm very grateful for the listeners that, that will use their judgment and think, is this going to work for me, or is it not going to work for me? And I'm also very grateful for people that write in with suggestions and say, I think you need to be thinking about this, or people that do comment and say, actually, I disagree about this because of this. That's all really helpful as well, because I think all this stuff needs to be a dialogue. And if there's anyone out there that's saying, this is how you should do it, and this is how I've got it totally right, then I think that's a massive red flag.
I find certainty to be a red flag.
Yeah.
When anyone is certain about anything, I'm looking under the floorboards to see where the stinky bodies are buried, because there's something not right.
Yeah.
Hello at youarnotafrog.com for feedback. Yeah.
Hello at youarnotafrog.com. We'd love to know. And if people got guest suggestions as well, because I'm very clear that I get pitched a lot of guests onto the podcast at the moment, as you know, Mark, and and I ignore the vast majority of them, because I want people that I know are going to speak to the audience, that actually know healthcare, that know what it's like. And a lot of those are not the people that have published hundreds of books and are really famous. They're the people that are working on the ground. So if people know people, or it might be you yourself, that want to come on and talk, then I'd love to hear from you, because that's where I get the best guests, is recommendations from listeners.
Rachel, thank you for giving me and the listener the opportunity to peek a little bit more inside the podcast. Where should people go if they want to find out more about you?
Well, youarenotaFrog.com. Check all that out and you can see our various courses and things like that. We'll put some stuff in the show notes as well. We'll put the 9 mistakes. We've got an SOS overwhelm toolkit as well. So if you are feeling really overwhelmed, just like, one more email is going to push you over the edge, then do download that. That's all totally free. So check that out. And Mark, I just wanted to say as well, it's really nice for people to see you because you're the person behind the scenes that actually makes it good. So thank you for all the effort you put in.
I don't make it good. I just make it smaller. But,
yeah. Mark has listeners, Mark has saved you like hours and hours and hours because he cuts down so much of my crap. You're going to be very grateful to this man.
Well, I'm grateful to you because I get to hear these episodes before anybody else, and so I get to sit between 7 to 21 days with some of these ideas and go, "Ooh, yeah, actually, that's a really nice idea. I'm not going to tell anyone. That's really good." Yes, thank you for what you do, and please keep doing it.
Will do, and I hope everyone has a good and restful summer. Thank you.